Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Backtrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and how is the beast like the mask? They're both smoking.
Drink it.
I'm joined on this episode by my co-host.
I'm gooey, and I'm smoking. I was gonna say something like that.
I won the intro bingo tic-tac-toe game there. We've returned to explore the stories behind your favorite Trek shows, and today we're talking about a beloved fairy tale and the Star Trek Enterprise episode that it inspired. It's the 1946 film Beauty and the Beast and the Enterprise episode Exile.
Oh yeah, we did it.
Could we get farther away? Like, we're talking about a film that I don't think a lot of people know about. It came out a long time ago, but is considered to be, by film people, like one of, the most important early films of all time. And one of the possibly worst episodes on the least regarded Trek show that came out in the beginning of the second millennium.
I see what you're getting at. Yeah. It's like the opposite of the Prestige poll, for sure.
Not totally terrible, but definitely has its issues.
Yeah, it was all right.
Which we're here to talk about, and we'll absolutely do that. Is it the third? It's the third millennium, technically, isn't it? I thought about it as like the 2000s, but that's the third millennium after the beginning of the Common Era.
Oh, this is like I'm bad at keeping track of the millenniums. They get by me so quick,
I was talking, or maybe sometimes I just spectate like online conversations, and I was watching this conversation that people were having about what was going on, I think not like around 9/11, but before 9/11. And I felt the need to point out to possibly like younger commenters that like, people don't remember how crazy we got like in the 90s, like approaching the year 2000. Not necessarily like an apocalyptic thing, like, the earth was going to smash into the sun or something like that, or like Jesus, Shiva, all these guys would show up at the same time and go, oh, do I do the thing? Not like that, but like just the idea of like this odometer is turning over. Do you know what I mean? Like something, This means something. And of course it doesn't really mean anything. The earth doesn't care what year it is, but just the idea of, it's been 2,000 years of common era civilization and what that means. And of course the 90s were very hopeful, but sort of desperately hopeful. We thought all these things were going to happen, and we were going to have everything solved. We already had Star Trek. All we needed was the pads and the shuttlecraft and stuff like that. And so people don't always like remember that it was like that now that we're in this sort of day-to-day slog of the third millennium.
Yeah, I like what you're saying too about like hopeful, but like weirdly, because that's like that time where it's like pre 9/11. It's like weird that it like lines up with that, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I just think of like things just kind of like simmering or something, you know what I mean? It's just like waiting for like the lid to pop off, you know what I mean? Where it's like, what's going on? Like what is happening? Oh, nothing's happening. Something should happen, right?
Yeah. And of course, I don't think that anybody, we were all caught blindsided by what did happen, but I wonder what would have happened if that didn't happen. Like if we would have seen the protests and the progressive movements that we have now, was that a result, or at least catalyzed by the tragedy that we saw and the depredations of, Western governments? Or will we still be just jamming out with our snap bracelets and our East Coast meets West Coast hip hop? Come on.
Did you see like that? It was like someone shared like an old, like, I don't know, Wired? I don't know what they shared. It was some old article about how like things are just going to keep getting better unless like these 12 things happen, and it's like you read the list and it's like every single one of them happened, and like one of the last ones was like failure to respond to like a mass pandemic or something. This is all like the late 90s of like things are great and they're just gonna keep getting greater unless everything that could possibly go wrong and everything we could possibly do and are set up to do, we do them.
And if we didn't fix any of the things that people warned us about, yeah, what would happen then?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about like an asteroid strike now because for years people had talked about, pandemics. Like you have to, watch out for this. You can go from, Australia to Alaska. I guess that's only over the Pacific, but anyway, like in a day. And so people are moving around. You're going to have problems like this. And yeah, if I'd read an article like that in the 90s or the 2000s, I'd be like, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, it's an existential threat. It's not existential. Like it happened, at the beginning of the 20th century. And now here we are at the beginning of the 21st century, and it totally happened. So like, as far as like the whole, we're overdue for like a giant meteor strike at this point. Now I feel a little more wary about like, maybe we should like get Bruce Willis up there and get some rockets or something like that. Like, how are we going to stop something like that? What do we do?
I'd be happy for that because it's something that, it wouldn't be our fault.
Yeah, just spin the wheel. Just start over.
It'd be a real feel-good disaster.
Instead of a feel-bad disaster.
Well, because,
this is a feel-good tragedy.
It's like you see some places like flooding because of climate catastrophe, and you're like, oh, this is, we know who fucked us, but then you have to argue with people about how like, oh no, it's not this, it's actually this, and it's like, shut up. It is this. So it'd be nice to where we could all unite against like a meteor where, I'm sure like someone would find a way to spin like, well, the meteor is actually good and here's why. It will actually solve a lot of issues if we just let it hit us.
Yeah, right. Decrease the surplus population. There's a movie that came out a while ago called Melancholia, which is by Lars von Trier, who, we're going to talk about a classic auteur today. Lars von Trier, I think, considers himself in the tradition of the auteurs. I don't like him at all. And I like a lot of weird, boring movies. I just don't like his artistic instincts. But he did have a point in this movie. In this movie, amongst other emotional storylines that are happening, there is a planet or a body that's going to hit Earth. And people are worried about that. But then Kiefer Sutherland plays the husband of one of the characters, and he is coded as this conservative, like religious right type guy. And he keeps talking about how like some scientists said that, but the good scientists have told us that it's going to miss. So there's nothing to worry about. And that just seems so like my girlfriend and I, we still to this day talk about what the good scientists are up to. Like we just found that so ridiculous. And of course, here we are 2021 and we've got alternative facts and we've got all kinds of good scientists who are telling us that we don't have to worry about this and that. And so that's the thing about art. I mean, like art can give you lessons that you don't know that you are supposed to be learning until sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's interesting to think about too, because that's like with my comparison, it's like, what are the good scientists here in this fictional world? It's like are they just saying this so we don't have to feel bad about it? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Right, because the worst thing to do is to feel bad.
Yeah,
hate feeling bad.
I think like because one of the main issues with like the things we deny, the good scientists would help people deny is like that it's stuff that we can actually do something about. So that's one way why it's bad. But I think for a lot of people it is just it's not even that they don't want to change. It's like they don't want to change, but they also don't want to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Because that's what people, when people are talking about, oh, they say this and this, they just want us to feel ashamed, I think that's like their main concern, like, yeah, which is a even worse hurdle to have to overcome than like doing something is like, even acknowledging that something needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, we've squeezed everything we can out of the shame sponge, I think, over the course of human history. There's a real like empowerment kind of movement going on, but it's okay to feel shame sometimes. It's okay to think about, why do I feel this way? Like, did I fuck something up? Or like, am I not paying attention to something? And I think that we probably need to not forget that it's important to feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
You know who should feel shame? Great segue. Paramount Plus. That's what worldwide fans say about the streaming service and about Viacom CBS in general on the news that on the eve of the debut of season 4 of Star Trek Discovery, the streaming deal that Paramount Plus had with Netflix that allows most international viewers to see the show has ended, which means that most international viewers cannot watch right now the fourth season of Star Trek Discovery.
That's pretty weak. And it's already a pretty bad service, I think. But...
yeah, it sucks. It's not even on PS5. Like, I get that, like,
Whoa.
that there's a shortage and, like, not everybody has a PS5, but it is, like, you want to be on the leading edge, right? Like, I can't, when I sit down to watch Star Trek, I can't watch it on my PlayStation. I have to get my phone and then, cast it to the thing and do all this other stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot of, like, a bunch of little, like, issues that all add up to, like, why is this is not worth, like, what you pay for it. And I don't know, I'm getting pretty fed up with it, but I kind of need it at the moment also.
Yeah, I feel that. And I'm willing to give them, like, the technical hiccups, like the whole PS5 thing. I mean, I literally, like, have a PS4 as well, so I can just watch it on that. But it all these, like you said, all these things add up to, I think, the growing pains that Paramount is going through, trying to become a big player in the streaming space. But this fuck up with Discovery, though, I think all the evidence points to that being an effect of political maneuvering, and sort of like financial consideration, because we have new Star Trek, or at least Discovery right now, because of Netflix. Paramount made this deal with Netflix. Paramount didn't or couldn't want to pay, couldn't pay or didn't want to pay the whole bill for Discovery. And so Netflix footed a lot of the bill in exchange for the very lucrative international streaming rights. Well, that deal was only set to go for 3-4 years, whatever it was up till now. And so to have the show literally about to debut 2 days after the deal falls through, usually you would go, well, look, maybe we want a better deal, but we do want our audience to see our show. And so we get something done beforehand, or we just pay a little bit extra through, the fourth season so we can get that out. And to me, it reeks of backdoor brinksmanship. Do you know what I mean? I think that, like, Netflix didn't want to pay the same. Paramount's like, you don't want to leave everybody without Star Trek, do you? And both cars just ran into each other. Like, everybody lost the game of chicken. They just went bam. And so now you've got fans who, understandably are pretty pissed about it and aren't necessarily thinking about the fact that Paramount Plus is trying to grow and all these other concerns. They just want to see their new Star Trek episodes. Yeah. And they're mad.
Do you think, too, it might, like, the Star Trek, some of the old series have, like, slowly gone away from Netflix?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's maybe part of
that's
it, too?
That's all part of it. Yeah, that's all part of it, too.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those whoever wins, we lose situation.
Whoever wins, we lose.
Love it when these two large media companies fight each other. Yeah. It always works out for the best.
Yeah, it's weird. And when you think about the fact that, now Paramount and Viacom CBS are all one entity, they've got more money and more negotiating power than ever. This isn't like, oh, sorry guys, we can't afford to do another season of Farscape or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, they could have made this happen if they had wanted to, but I think that they were like, no, we're going to draw a line in the sand that's going to basically immiserate our entire audience and make them mad at us. And that's not something that they need. I think that with 4 Star Trek shows on, they feel like, we're back, baby. But it's just, look at Doctor Who. Doctor Who is already sort of wilted after a decade or so. You have to pace yourselves, and you have to make sure that you are paying attention to the needs of your customers. Because there is just, if there's you go to the deli, and if they don't have the roast beef, people are going to get the chicken, or they're going to get the corned beef or something like that. There's a lot of things on offer.
Yeah,
in this marketplace.
That's what's tough too, is like, because for Star Trek fans, it's like, seems like a no-brainer service you'd probably want to sign up for. But and I mean, I guess there's a lot of Star Trek fans, but like, if you're not a Star Trek fan, are you like looking at this and you're like, or even you're probably not even paying it, probably don't know about this, but what's like gonna get you to like get CBS or whatever, or to get Paramount Plus? So that's kind of what I think about, is like, I feel like this service right now like specifically caters to Star Trek fans, and so you might as well at least try to keep them happy.
Yeah,
because you're not gonna attract anyone with the mayor of Kingstown or whatever.
My parents probably have it for the good fight, but
okay.
yeah, but I see your point though.
Yeah, you at least please the Star Trek fans, especially with how nuts, like how intensely they are on these shows,
Yeah, everybody is at 11, I think, in the third millennium of our society. But yeah. But hopefully they'll get that ironed out. And also, it's like, it just exposes like how unprepared you are. Because the point is that it won't be on Netflix. It'll be on Paramount Plus. But your service is not yet available in these countries. So you're just telling, it isn't like anybody, they drop the ball and you just point at them. There's nobody to point at. Yeah, it's just their problem. It's like, sorry, we don't have it yet. And it's like, okay, great.
Because like you could have at least galvanized, like you could have weaponized your fans against Netflix if like you had an alternate, like, oh no, we're going to put it up here, we're going to get it here or something, but instead it just seems like you withholding. Yeah, it's a bad look.
Yeah, they pulled the tablecloth out, and the glasses and the dishes didn't stay on the table. They all just went on the floor. Yeah.
Can I say a little nitpick about the service? I didn't want to get into it, but you know what I want to say, because like I was saying, to me, Paramount Plus is, I'm sure people are watching The Good Fight, like you said, but to me, it is a Star Trek playing app. It is the app that plays Star Trek. And I go and I'm like, I'm going to watch an episode of Voyager or whatever. And I hit play on Voyager. And it shows me an ad I'm paying for the ad-free version, but it will show me an ad for the new season of Discovery. And I'm thinking, who is paying for this service that is watching Voyager that does not know about the new season of Discovery? Why are you showing me this? I don't need to see this. I know about it.
Yeah.
It just makes me hate them more. Instead of going, oh, I should watch Discovery, I just go like, shut up. Like, let me skip it. You should be like, they should ask you like, do you know about Star Trek? And then you just hit okay, and then they're like, all right, we won't bother you.
Okay, no more. Yeah, I'm mostly familiar with Star Trek fandom just because of, what I do. But I suppose there's probably like recalcitrant older fans in all fandoms, but there are plenty of like older Star Trek fans who know nothing about what's going on in Discovery or maybe about the existence of shows like Picard. Now, I think the vast likelihood, 99% chance that they are that way for a reason, and no amount of advertising would change their minds. But I can see, I think it's possible that there are people who don't know that there's new Star Trek on.
All right. Well, at least make it like the Netflix thing where you load up the app and it's like all you see is like, because that's how it is. You load it up and it's like Discovery, and it should like autoplay a trailer that everyone hates to autoplay trailers. But that's worse to me, or that's better to me, because you can like click away from it. But I don't know. It's whatever. I don't need to see the trailer every time I watch an episode of Voyager.
Right. Have you heard about Star Trek Discovery? You can't watch it if you live in the UK.
Yeah, that's just rubbing salt in the wound.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our subject for this week's episode, and it's fairy tales. Fairy tales, man, they might nominally be for children, but they appeal to adults as well, because they deal with characters and themes that we can all appreciate. Pinocchio reminds us that honesty is the best policy. Cinderella would have us understand that love should transcend class or identity. And it's a no-brainer that if a guy from Hamlin gets rid of all your rats, you should pay that guy what he's owed. Fairy tales tend to reinforce the mores and societal assumptions of their times, but just as often they can provide something of a counterpoint to conventional wisdom and remind the listener that not everything is always exactly what it seems. That's one of the themes present in Jean Cocteau's 1946 adaptation of the Beauty and the Beast myth, La Belle et la Bête.
L'amour peut faire qu'un homme devienne bête. L'amour peut faire aussi qu'un homme laid devienne beau.
Yeah. This
and
rocks.
That's my French. Yeah, this is a movie. So Cocteau is a huge blind spot for me. I've seen Orpheus, The Testament of Orpheus, a long, long time ago and had no idea what I was watching. But other than that, like not somebody who's on my radar. And this is, of course, the thing where I didn't go to film school. So I'm sure that like, most people who went to film school were like force-fed Cocteau and his kind of existentialist or absurdist kind of works in his films, but yeah, this is something that was not on my radar. I knew of it and had never seen it, and I'm glad that I finally sat down and watched it because I mean I like the Disney one, but this is definitely up there as like one of the best versions of this story. And when you think about the fact that we watched like Casablanca, right? This is only a couple years after Casablanca. The kind of like what they've already figured out in terms of special effects, camera trickery, and the kind of ways that they accomplish all the effects in camera. That there's no CGI. There isn't even really a lot of money for trickery and stuff like that. Like the things that they do are really, really something special.
Yeah, really impressive. And I'm similar. I haven't seen this, or like I've admitted many times on this show to like I just don't know a lot of like older films, but then when we watch them I'm always impressed, and I always am like I need to watch more, because like I watched this and I was like, I don't know, this was one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. I think because like you said, those effects were really cool, in contrast to the Disney movie, which I do like, but it is obviously a way different thing. But I like that, the Disney movie is a kind of, it's a really like well told story. It's really solid in like the way a lot of theirs are. But this feels to me like even greater than that, because it's not just like this like super tight like, oh, here's like, it's not like here's like a moral we're trying to tell, even though it does have kind of these messages and meanings, but it is more of like, I don't know, it's like a poem or something that you're supposed to kind of like interpret for your own, and that's why it hits harder to me, is that it kind of captures like disparate different emotions, that it just really draws them out of me, as opposed to just like kind of your more straightforward traditional Disney story,
Yeah, and you can see now, having seen this, like the inspiration that the Disney film took from this. Of course, they all were inspired by the original story of The Beauty and the Beast, which was originally written by an author named Gabrielle Suzanne de Villeneuve, who wrote an original story called La Belle et la Bête. But that story was then adapted by someone else, another author in the mid 18th century, Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont, who put it into an anthology. And that is kind of like took the ideas from the original story, which were a lot weirder, like involved like, Belle was the child of like a fairy king or something like that, who was, was adopted by her father, and kind of stripped out those elements and sort of Grimm's fairy taled it a little bit and made it more digestible. So they all go back to that. But there are, this is just, if you added like songs and color to this, it would be awfully close to the Disney version.
That's true. I think one thing the Disney version tries to do is like, it sort of tries to, like rationalize a lot more of the things that happen, whereas like this, it feels a little bit more like it is fantasy, and like we don't have to like explain everything, which I even the Disney movie doesn't, it's still wondrous and magical or whatever. But even I just like this even more, where it's kind of leave it to yourself to sort of like feel how you want about these like really like strange, like this is pretty strange on its own, I feel like. The prince has been transformed in the Disney movie by this witch or something like that, and so have all of his staff, and so we've got a talking candelabra and things like that. Whereas in the Cocteau thing, the fact that the castle is alive and the statues, follow you with their eyes and their heads, and it's more just magic, but also, the nascent sort of early medium of cinema. It's like, look what we can do. We're going to freak you out. Like, this statue is alive and he's breathing smoke. It was scary. Like, it's kind of a horror element to it.
Yeah. I watched this on Criterion, the CriterionChannel.com. And it's very well preserved. It's very sharp, looks great for its age. And even with the sharpness and probably the remaster, the effects are great. Like the beast makeup, the statue people and things like that. Like everything looks good. There's barely anything in it that you could go, okay, that's a little like stagey, or I can see how they did that.
Yeah, it kind of lends it to like, there is like sort of a simplicity to it too. Like a lot of the settings are very like, I don't know, they just seem really well crafted, but it's not like crazy. But then they do these little things that are like, how do like, I still think like, how did they do that?
Yeah, it was, a lot of it was shot on location, and I can't remember. I had to learn, like I said, I don't know a lot about Cocteau or this film, so I had to learn a lot. So I can't remember the guy that did the costumes, but I know that he was a big deal. And so the costumes are, as much as they can be, of the period, authentic. And, it's funny that you would describe this as poetry, because that's kind of like Cocteau's thing. Like, people remember him because nobody wants to read poetry, but we can access films, right? Like they show films, you can rent films. So we know about people through films, but he was a very prolific poet, and he wrote novels. He did a lot of stage work. He wrote criticism on poetry. Like, he only directed, 5 or 6 full-length films in his career. Like, he considered himself, a multi-disciplinary artist. And so that was very important to him, the lyricism. That's one of the reasons that the film opens with that crawl that talks about the story. And so sort of, this is very popular, of course, in at this time, the Brechtian idea of like separating yourself. This is a story. We ask that you, consider for a moment like this magical world and say those words, once upon a time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but that kind of is what I was saying about like, the magic of it is it's like, you don't need to be too concerned with like, like you're never thinking like, okay, is the candle, like, who was that guy? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Or like even the mechanics of it, of like the rose that's like wilting or any of this, it's just sort of like, I was able to just kind of like both take it on its face, but also like it's more than that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like when he's like, if you don't come back, I'll die of grief, like that. I was just like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, that's what's happening. But then also you kind of you can also like draw things from what's going on besides like the stated obviousness, I guess, of it all.
The not worrying too much about plot or the details of it, but yet those ideas of those laws and rules that we see in fairy tale stories a lot of times, where it's like, well, if you took the rose and that means you have to die. And why isn't, like, I guess he has very powerful magic, but why isn't her father like, fuck you? just like, I'll take 2 roses. See you later. Like, how are you going to enforce this thing? Or, if you don't come back, then I know that I will die. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
So you gotta come back.
The horse just knows where you want to go. That's cool.
You tell the horse, get over there, and the horse is like, oh, got it. I know exactly where you're going. Yeah. The despite the fantastical nature of the story, it was actually inspired by a real guy, a guy named Petrus Gonsalves. Had a condition called hypertrichosis during his life, and you can look up paintings from the time of him and also his children. And they had they look like the Wolfman. They had like hair all over the place.
Whoa, sweet.
And so, so that's kind of interesting. That it inspired this tale. I don't know if he was a nice guy or if he loved roses or what, but that got the original creator thinking about this sort of thing. And, there's a whole, it's funny that like we think of fairy tales as something that you base a Disney animated film on, but there's a whole science behind fairy tales that I've always found fascinating, but I'm not well educated enough to keep up with it.
Okay.
The fact that like these tales that you see repeated, across cultures, across years. If you go to like the Beauty and the Beast story, like the idea of the story Wikipedia page, they have like 36 different versions of this tale that exist, across the world and across human history. And there's something called the Arne Thompson Uther Index, which is a bunch of brainiacs got together and they analyzed as many fairy tales as they could, and they found like common stories, common threads, like a boy finds a magic object like a ring or something like that, or a girl has an evil parent, an evil stepfather, somebody who they're not related to because they have a higher sort of a noble birth, and they assign them all numbers. And so this number is 425. C is the Beauty and the Beast tale. It's a woman who, against her will, is forced to live with, a beast or something like that. There may be a love story, maybe not. She may have some kind of magical connection to him. And I always thought it'd be interesting to do, and I would definitely name it after myself, but to do an index for the 800 episodes of Star Trek. I mean, we're kind of doing that here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like this index is kind of like the spiritual forefather to what we're trying to do on backtracking. And there are a lot of stories about, maybe that's too, am I ennobling it too much?
No.
But there are a lot of stories about something like this. A young girl is given to a mysterious man or is forced to marry a mysterious man. And they tend to be kind of instructive. And there's the story of Bluebeard, which is 312 on the index, where a woman is married to this guy named Bluebeard. He says, do whatever you want, just don't go in the basement. And then, of course, she goes in the basement, and it's all the dead wives that he had before, and then he's like, you shouldn't have gone in here, and he kills her, and then she gets to be down there with all the other dead wives. And it's like, that's interpreted as a myth of, like, condemning female curiosity.
Okay, yeah.
So, sort of the like the original Pandora myth, like, ladies be looking in things that they shouldn't. So,
well, I think you see a lot of the different stories that would show up on this scale. Like, the reason they're so common is because they describe things that people think about or are like anxious about or whatever, So
yeah,
that's
it's insidious because it's a cute tale about a lady that meets a beast. But like, does it have like some kind of unconscious, like instructive, societal lesson in it? I think that Beauty and the Beast differs from something like Bluebeard in that at least it's it's about love. It's about her seeing past this horrible thing that has happened to this guy.
Yeah.
And usually the guy is in some way being punished for something. I think in the original Beauty and the Beast tale, the fairy tale, he's just like a sorceress wants to like have sex with him, and he's like, no. And she's like, all right, you're a beast. So that's not like, what did he do wrong there? He wasn't sex positive enough. That's the problem. But at least in this tale, like this, it's about a woman, leaving. Actually, something else that I've read is like, the quote unquote instructive part of this might be getting women ready to, especially noble women, ready to marry like an older, uglier man in the way that they did that back then.
Okay.
So like you are given from your father, who probably has money trouble, to an old, ugly beast of a man. He is going to want to have sex with you, and you are going to have to just get over that. Beauty and the Beast.
Maybe, yeah. Well, the thing about it is it probably sort of depends on like whose interpretation, like the presentation of the story. Like maybe that's the original. I feel like that's not how it comes off here, if anything.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's like, I sort of think about like, well, I guess the like more recent remake they did, the American one, where like they tried to like fix things, I feel like, from that don't like hold up, like, society wise, I guess. But I feel like it's like, I don't know if you should just take the previous work and then try to like refix it. Instead, it's like, why not just do a new interpretation of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. They always want to do that.
When I watch this one, like, I don't feel like we gotta get under the hood and like meddle with this one, and then it'll be a perfect movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's I guess that's what I mean is like it could have one application in this one time and a different application another time, but like now we're looking at the 90s one and going like, let's like make this one work again instead of like, just do something different, or I don't know, don't do it. Maybe have an alien who's got an orb,
or just or you're thinking of 2011's Beastly with Vanessa Hudgens, where she falls in love with this guy.
I didn't see that.
He's cursed to have these weird tattoos. Yeah.
I mostly, I guess that is different in a bad way, but this one, it was more like with that story element you mentioned, it was more about her like leaving her. It felt like about someone who was like leaving her home. She had been like cared for by her father, and this was kind of her like maturation almost,
Yeah, and also the idea that she isn't just working against. She is working against a curse, I guess, because the beast has his curse, but he also has these powers, through his glove and his ring and the mirror, and he's kind of gifting them all to her. And so I don't know if this is correct, but I would interpret it as, her becoming, not only becoming a woman, but also being exposed to things in the outside, not the provincial life with the chickens, in the on the wagons and stuff like that. And she's like, she's learning things, she's reading things, she's going places, she's meeting people, and she's like gaining all of this agency through these metaphorical sort of magic things that she's picking up.
I guess it was kind of interesting that they had the same like actor, like when he became like human in the end. It was like her.
That is a fascinating story, because Cocteau was openly gay for basically his entire life, and for many years, for basically 3 decades, his partner was Jean Marais, the guy that plays the Beast and also Avenant in the film. Like that was his.
Oh, cool.
He considered him his muse, both poetically and cinematically. Marais had a impressive career in French film as well. He was in like 100 films, but so like putting, not only having the idea of a beautiful, male character who is sort of like transforming, from this beast into this kind of grinny, guy with the haircut. And then also having him be the boyfriend of the director, who put him in this role where this is like shades of like what happened to like the Tin Man, the first Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz. Like apparently this was the makeup looks great, but putting it on him like took 3 hours, and he was getting blisters from like the the adhesives and the spirit gums that they had to put on there, and he was just like miserable like under all this beast makeup. And so I just think it's just really interesting.
They had to make him like smoke too.
Yeah, and plus, I have no idea why everybody is smoking all the time.
He seemed miserable.
Yeah,
So,
he did.
good
Yeah,
job.
he did. Yeah, he didn't seem happy. Yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah, there was something about the fact that like he transforms basically into like already like the vision of like her only other like companion, I guess. It I don't know, that's where I was thinking about, like it got me thinking a lot like that, more so than anything in the movie, where I started to think like this is about like moving out on your own and sort of like coming to terms with your companion who isn't perfect. You know what I mean? Maybe in the original, or maybe it could be interpreted as like getting ready for like an ugly old dude, but in here it's actually like this beautiful young man, but he's like a little intense.
And Cocteau intentionally made him. It wasn't like when he goes in the film reverses and he kind of stands up from the ground, like he is like full on gleaming like fairy tale guy. And Cocteau did that on purpose, and he knew that would piss people off because the Beast is kind of interesting. Supposedly, like when this happened, Marlene Dietrich saw this film in Paris at a screening and was like pissed. She famously said, "Where is my beautiful Beast?" after this grinning guy shows up, because like you kind of fall in love with the Beast and you start to feel for him. And apparently he got like a ton of letters and like telegrams saying like, "Why did you do that at the end? He just turns into this cheesy guy at the end, but he was interesting before." And there's also kind of something about that, like, once you tame a mystery, once you understand it, you've got it now. But maybe there's something a little wistful, there's something a little lost going from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah, and also it was like I thought it represented more.
But then you get to jump up in the air and fly, and that's fun.
And that was also kind of freaky, like the way they like if you just added the music from like the end of The Witch, where they're floating away.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
like it would be terrifying.
Time to live deliciously.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's about a young girl falling in love with the Beast and making a pact with him and floating off into the sky.
Oh my God, that's a term paper that I'm not going to write, but somebody should.
But no, I felt it was more like, okay, maybe he's a little too chipper. Movies are more interesting about when they're about people with like issues. But I sort of viewed it as like he doesn't have to like suffer anymore, and so he's happy. He's feeling good.
Yeah, if the Beast throws Gaston off the castle wall, and then after the rose regenerates, and if he turned into Gaston, people would be pissed.
Yeah, but because that's how they set that movie up, Whereas I feel like Avenant or whatever, like he's not like I don't feel like he doesn't come off as like evil like Gaston does, if that makes sense. Like I feel like Gaston, you're like, he just has the worst vibes,
Yeah.
Whereas like Avenant, it's like he's just like a regular dude,
Yeah, all the quote unquote like villains, which are basically her family in the film, it isn't. I don't know. I guess I have to go back through all the fairy tales, but it isn't like they're just evil because they're evil. Like they're the wicked queen is a queen. Like she's got money and resources. I guess she just is mad that Snow White happens to be, quote unquote, more beautiful than she is. But like you can kind of understand all their problems. Like their father, like, through no fault of his own, I guess his ship sank. They lost all their money. And then the brother's like, oh, maybe I'll do this little deal and get some more in trouble. And so maybe they're dealing with it badly. Maybe they have kind of bitchy dispositions, but you can kind of understand like, wait, there's a room with a ton of treasure in it, like on this beast's property. Well, let's go get that treasure.
Right. Yeah. And I like, maybe too, like something is lost in translation, but I sort of felt like Avenant seem like he like actually loved her. You know, it like I don't really get that from Gaston. Like I just feel like he's horned up, I guess, you know, whereas like the way he talked to Belle in this was like it was very charming and romantic. Like when he's talking about the floors reflecting her beauty, I was like charmed a little bit. I mean, he is kind of a jerk, but I don't know. So I sort of felt like the Beast was actually kind of a reflection of him in this movie, and it was kind of about her, I don't know, like finally being ready to be with someone else, you know, but like after maturing. But I don't know.
Who ends up looking just like him. She's got a pattern. If this was done, if you did this today, you would maybe have a little bit of the bummer ending there. You would have her kind of be like, oh, maybe she was trying to get that across in like 1940s acting didn't do it, but you'd see her be maybe a little disappointed that like he looks exactly like this guy that she's basically decided that it's just not for her. And now she's like, oh, I went through all that stuff. I broke the curse. I guess I got to go through with it.
She'd be like, it could come off as more of like settling almost.
Yeah. Not a great way to end a fairy tale, you think, for kids.
Instead of being like, you learn to love someone despite their faults or like, you know, their appearance.
Right, which is nominally what this story is supposed to be about.
Yeah. Instead, it's like this person kind of sucks, but like you learn to deal with it because what are you gonna live with your dad forever?
Yeah, I suppose. I put up with all this stuff, like, oh, he'll get better, and then he like didn't get better enough, but I put up with it all of it. So here we are.
He's kind of good looking, I guess. Yeah.
Fade to black, single gunshot. Yeah. Would you? I don't know. Like, would you normally have a movie that is essentially a children's story for adults, like in the 1940s? I guess I don't know enough about 1940s cinema. I know that, like, you know, since the Great Train Robbery onward, you know, we think of like Hollywood as being like, oh, there's old Hollywood, and now there's like John Wick, but the truth is, like, they had gone through pretty much everything in that index by this point. Like, you know, cinema had been around for 30 years, but they were already remaking things. They were already doing things. That's always been what Hollywood does. And so I'm like trying to think of like older fairy tale films, and I don't think you would normally find something like this that is essentially presented, you know, for adults, but it's asking adults, an adult post-war audience, to watch this fairy tale. I thought that was sort of interesting.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, you know, Disney movies are for everybody. Like, you know, they're for your kids, but there's jokes in there for you.
Right.
Or maybe you're just a Disney fan. You want to see the animation. They hit all the quadrants.
They like, it definitely, like, I feel like definitely wouldn't happen now. Because if it was made, like, it's either like a movie, it would be made for everyone, or if like they make a movie that's for adults, it's like, it's not, especially if it's like an adaptation or something like this, it's not because it's like sophisticated or anything. It's because like they say the F word in it or something, you know what I mean? It's like Deadpool, you know, like that's like the movies that we get for adults now is like Deadpool.
If you don't come back in 7 days, I'm gonna fucking die.
Yeah, we would get Ryan Reynolds' Beauty and the Beast now. And like that is, that's people would be like, oh my god, like, it's so edgy. You know?
That's Deadpool. If the Beast was the hero of Beauty and the Beast, that's kind of Deadpool.
Yeah, I guess so. You learn to love him for his sarcastic remarks.
Right. in his cratered face. Yeah. It's also maybe interesting to point out that like the one sort of weird thing, I think the resolution is a little weird. Like, we're told that don't go in the Diana's pavilion or whatever because it'll be bad news. And then the guy, you know, we've already covered the fact that, you know, the guy who looks like the guy that she'll end up with does try to do it, and he gets shot and becomes a beast. But all the little things in the castle, they're all fun. They're all helping you. They're holding, you know, they're pouring you wine, and the hands are, you know, holding the candles. But like one statue has a bow and arrow. Look out.
It will mess
like,
you
the
up.
Idea, yeah. The idea of that being, like, I guess that's Diana, right? And Diana is the goddess of virginity, you know, of girlishness. And so it means something that's what's slaying this this other guy, and then and the guy who's the Beast becomes the man that she will.
That's why I think they're the same guy. Like, I think they're supposed to be the same guy, is because
if it had shot her brother, like the Beast would have turned into her brother, and she's like, "Oh no, I can't get married to my brother."
Right? Yeah. That'd be weird. Yeah, I don't know. There's something that because it's not explained. It begs so many questions for me, but not in a bad way. Of like, how does this work? But like, what does it all mean? And I think that's why it leaves me with thinking like, there's something about like her coming to love him, but then also like this other character being transformed into him and him into the other guy. I don't know. There's something about it that feels like it's also sort of about him, like finally not living up to, but like becoming the person she's supposed to be with, I guess,
I'm still processing. I'm still thinking about it. There's some great gags in this that are, using the special effects that they have at the time, but like just come off really great and intriguing. When she goes back to visit her family, which she does because she misses and loves them, but she shows up in like her fine gowns and her pearls and diamonds, and of course that just pisses off like her family even more. And then they're like, "Here, you can have this pearl necklace." And I have no idea how they did this, but in one shot, she hands him the necklace, and then it turns into like poop or something, and she drops it, and then it boom hits the ground and turns back into a pearl necklace, and it's like that was all in camera. I have no idea how they did that.
Yeah, there's some like trickery there for sure. That was probably the most standout effect to me, just because it really left me wondering.
The sisters are looking in the mirror, and like one of them's old, and the other one is a monkey.
Yeah. Well, she wanted the monkey at the beginning. That's what you get for wanting a monkey.
You got your monkey.
Yeah, I always see like that's cool stuff to see, because I always catch people like posting little things online about like, here, check out this cool effect from this time, and I'm always like, I would love to see something like that in action, like in the context of a movie. And I'm like, I did it. I don't know how they did it. I'm impressed. Yeah.
I think it's interesting too that, the most famous version of this tale that most people know is the Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And of course, they get rid of the stepsisters, which it feels like a sort of Cinderella-y connection, but there was a lot of evil, like, relatives or sisters, stepsisters in these things back in the day.
Yeah.
But the main thrust of their presence is the criticism of materialism. And you can't have that in a Disney movie, so we just get rid of that. And Belle likes books. She likes reading books.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is I feel like, and it works, but I feel like it's like so laser focused more to like one thing, like these characters and like the moral that they're trying to get across. It's like,
I have not seen the DuckTales reboot. I wonder how they handle like Scrooge's being a mega capitalist, you know what I mean? Because it'd be weird to go to a Beauty and the Beast movie where two women are humiliated for their love of things and items, and then also stop by the gift shop on the way out because you have to buy all the Beauty and the Beast merchandise.
Right. Yeah, and they go even like more intense with it in the one with the more recent one, where it's like she's like super into like science and stuff like that.
I can never remember her last name. Emma, what's her name?
Watson,
that's it.
Yeah. So she's like into like science, and she like invented like a washing machine and stuff like that.
Fantastic.
That's actually par for the course in like a lot of the Disney remakes. Is like in like the Dumbo one, there's like a girl who also is into science. It's about like getting the younger girls into science.
Of course, culminating in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, but I know there's a little kid who is into science.
Yep. There's another little kid named Podcast that's like, I feel attacked.
It's a podcaster kid?
His name is Podcast.
His name is Podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, no. What?
That's kind of the level that we're operating at.
Okay, sure. I don't even want to know. I don't want to know the context.
That's like naming a character Dab or something like that. It just shows a level of detachment. Yeah, Fortnite. Look out, Fortnite. Anything else you wanted to say about this? I mean, we've had a discussion about the themes and what we liked, and I don't know what else to say except like people, seek out this film. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I loved it. It confused me a little bit. I'm still trying to put it all together, but it definitely moved me. Yeah.
It deserves its place on the curriculum of all those film schools.
Oh, sure. Yeah. They should do a thing where they let dumb guys who haven't gone to film school approve what they show in film school. And I would say,
you gotta watch The Matrix.
Up.
The Matrix Revolutions. It's better. It's better than people remember. An 8-week course. Yeah. Well, with that, let's take a break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more backtracking. How would you describe Just Enough Trope? We are the Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm your host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
Oh no, does this mean they can hear all the things I yell at the TV during Downton Abbey?
Why did you do that?
How do you plead?
Let the game begin.
Yeah, check these fresh moves.
Oh!
Don't shoot man in face.
This isn't the Save Gotham fundraiser.
It's the Chill Family Reunion.
Master Yoda assigned a Padawan to this bold Jedi.
I think it's pronounced Padawan.
Oh, Padawan, excuse me.
Hey, it's getting late. I think Ralph's going to want his motorcycle back.
Go jerk off the pictures of Jean Grey.
I am freaking getting old.
Yeah, I noticed the life clock was blinking in your hand.
Get out of here, Wilson. Go fight the Teen Titans or something.
I'm unkillable, not unwoundable.
You like Sailor Moon, right? Why don't you sail on his
Oh, wow.
Just Enough Trope. News, reviews, and geek fondue. Every Monday on the Just Enough Trope podcast network.
Loving me never have a say. You so sorry.
What?
Okay, we're back. It's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. Fairy tales and mythology were the original genre fiction, but their didactic or instructive natures are mirrored in sci-fi like Star Trek, where strange aliens replace misunderstood monsters, but the common, socially positive messages of our world remain the same, even if they're expressed on a different world or different planets. The trappings of a fairy tale, though, fantasy, magic, and whimsy, don't always slip easily into a sci-fi setting, and in a rational and skeptical world like Star Trek, they can fit like a glass slipper on the foot of an evil stepsister. Such is the case for the third season Enterprise episode, Exile.
UPN Wednesday. He can show her the universe and the secret that could save Earth. Think of what I can offer you, but at a price.
You would kill over 80 people to keep me here?
Their fate is in your hands.
Yeah.
And we come to bury and not to praise it. It sounds like I didn't love this. And after having watched,
I don't know, it was fine to watch.
After you'll get your chance. After having watched all of Enterprise and looking back, it's like this is one of the low points as far as I'm concerned.
That's fair. I was sort of just like watching it, and I'm like, look at this weird guy in his orb.
Yeah.
Like it goes down easy, and it's kind of weird enough that it was fun to watch, but it's not like good, you know. Like it didn't blow my mind or anything, but it's just a fun episode, I thought.
We're apparently going through Enterprise episode by episode because this is right after Impulse, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
which is interesting because the beginning of this, like before they get there and it like fully kicks into like Beauty and the Beast mode, it's like a horror kind of episode. Like she's being like stalked telepathically. Right. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like I thought it was actually more effective than the horror in the previous episode you just mentioned. Like it was actually a little creepy and scary. Not, I didn't really go anywhere, but it was a good, I don't know, it was a good setup for the character, I thought.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about maybe where they were at in terms of finding plots for Enterprise, or perhaps what they wanted to accomplish with season 3, the season-long Zindi arc, which is full of kind of horror stories and like weird, fantastical kind of things. I think it's interesting to note that this is apparently the first Star Trek episode since the episode The High Ground, the TNG episode, that was both written and directed by a woman. It was directed by Roxanne Dawson, of course, the actress behind B'Elanna. Yeah. And then written by Phyllis Strong, who wrote a couple Voyager episodes and a ton of Enterprise episodes, was also a story editor on the show as well. And I don't think that we're worse off for it. I think that Phyllis Strong has written a lot of good episodes. I just think that this is kind of a half-baked idea, which with a clear inspiration that we were talking about, and then also merged with, we've got to get a lot of this like world building. We got to lay all these bricks here because we're gonna pay things off later on in season 3. They discover more spheres. They discover that there are many spheres. They're learning about the nature of the expanse, and it's not. It doesn't. There's no B story. Like, it's just plot. Like, they're just learning things. It isn't like T'Pol doesn't believe that there are spheres, but then she changes her mind or something. It doesn't develop anybody. It's just stuff going on when Linda Park's not on screen.
Yeah, and it was a little like, that was weird to check into, because I was like, I don't really know what they're talking about. Like, I remember the Expanse and I remember the Xindi, but I was like, I don't really know what they're talking about, but whatever. It was fine when it was like connected to the guy that they were talking to, the Beast, where it was like, he's got information, that's good enough of a hook,
Yeah.
I don't think they needed that other stuff, but I guess they're trying to push the story forward,
Yeah, and not everything is going to pay off, even as Star Trek is at this point experimenting heavily with long running stories and things kind of coming back and recurring. Having this guy who's like this weird psychic guy that lives in a castle on a planet all by himself. It doesn't, he doesn't come back. We'll never see him again. Doesn't matter. It's also weird. I was thinking about the fact that he's like this great telepath, and we know that, there's mind melds and there's, beta Zeds and things like that. But I don't think that like Star Trek doesn't really often go in for woo mind power telepathy stuff. Mm-hmm. Troy gets used, usually very sparingly. I sense that they're hiding something or whatever. And yeah, they use the mind meld maybe too much on Voyager and TOS. But like the idea of this guy who's like has these mental powers that he focuses through a crystal, and he can speak to you from, he can haunt your cabin from light years away, and it's very fantastical. It's almost fantasy. It's not something you would see in the usually fairly hard sci-fi of Star Trek.
And I think they did try to like explain how it could happen, but also like how it doesn't happen to everyone, because it was only your brain can do it. I don't know. So,
yeah, if it unlocked like some sort of like latent telepathic power in Hoshi, it would have given her something to do for the rest of the series.
That would be my main like critique of not just the episode, but like just in general, is like this could have actually been. We were talking about it in the last episode or something, where they eventually were like, we need like to give Bashir something, Mm-hmm. we need to like, let's make him a augmented human, because that's interesting. Like that's what they should have pulled the trigger on with Hoshi, because like I cannot tell you anything about her character from the last time I watched the whole show. Like I don't know what her deal is,
Yeah.
So that could have been a
more or less her impact on the ongoing story of Star Trek is twofold. One, she's basically the person that invented what they use as the universal translator. She created like cool. All these people that she talked to, and she's also a lingual genius, and so there might have been other people involved, but yeah, she's part of that. And then also in the Mirror universe, she became the Empress of the Terran Empire, and so later on, when we get to Discovery Times, we meet Empress Georgiou. One of her emperor names is Iaponus, which is Latin for Japanese. the idea that like she is a descendant or at least a part of the dynasty of the Empress Hoshi.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a fun thing to do in the mirror universe.
Yeah, but it's all off screen.
Right.
It's nothing that she gets to do on screen.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, I was watching this and I was thinking they should bring the show back and do a few more seasons, and they should give Hoshi the mind powers. They could still be like, oh, now she's unlocked them or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bring this guy back, this weird little freak. I kind of thought the story was decent to a point, like just this weird guy. But they don't ever, like, I guess I kind of like that it ends and like he's still just kind of like pathetic and lame. Like I did kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like that was their twist on it, is like, yeah, this guy just kind of like sucks, you know? And I guess the dark ending, if it was not an episode of Star Trek, was like maybe she would stay there and like be like, okay, I guess I'll live with this like weird dude. And that's a bummer, but he's got orbs, so he's cool.
Yeah, the episode doesn't go far enough in anything that it does. It doesn't go far enough with its kind of fairy tale premise. It doesn't go far enough with this idea of that we get in the episode, which is like, we'll see throughout this season that Archer is desperate. You know, we have to solve this crisis. Like the Earth is at stake. You know, the future of humanity is at stake. And so, what is he willing to do? And basically, this guy goes, "Yeah, I'll give you what you want, but I want her." And of course, Archer's like, "Oh no, we don't do that." But then he's kind of like, he does let it happen. Like it isn't like she says, "No, I also want to save all of humanity. I will sacrifice myself." Any other Star Trek captain I could think of would be like, "We're not doing this. Forget it. Like we're out of here." And Archer's just kind of like, "Okay, well, no, I don't like this." But then he lets her do it. And so we don't ever, the only payoff to that is when he comes back and the guy pretends to be him, and he's like, "You should stay here longer." She knows that it's not him.
Right.
I guess
Almost
because
right away.
Archer wouldn't do that, but I think it's like she probably knows because Archer's too nice. Archer would never be that nice. He'd be mad about something and stressed out.
Well, it hits a point too where he's like, "No, don't come back to the ship." You know, it's like,
Yeah.
all right.
We'll get you whatever you want. It's fine. So wait a minute. You're being way too
Yeah.
nice. You're not the real Archer.
I think if the pivotal moment, I feel like, is like when she gets him to like relent or whatever, that if they would have done something different there, like they do something to him, pull fast one on him, or like she comes to understand him or anything. But instead she's just like, "I'm going to smash your orb." And he's like, all right. That's like,
Yeah.
They like couldn't think of anything. Like they couldn't think of a character. Like there wasn't a character moment. She was just like, "I'll break it," and he's like, "Fine, you can."
Yeah,
go.
they've got a guy that can make you see things. Like they've got this set. They could do whatever they want. Like you could. The danger of like telepaths and people that can make you see things that aren't real is that you never really know if it's real or not, right? So like have an act where she goes back to the ship and then they're taking off, but like something goes wrong, and then it turns out she's just laying in bed, like she was not on the ship. And so like when she goes back to the ship at the end, it's like she'll never really know if she's in the Matrix or not.
Yeah.
Just something. That's the normal beat that you would do.
Or if she wanted to like get him, they could have had her give her the powers and be like, "No, you're locked in here with me," and she has to like put him through the ringer,
Yeah, and we get a taste of that when she uses the thing. Like she's able to use it. Like she sees like a lot of these images, which I didn't go back and freeze frame, but I don't know if they're probably pulled from other Star Trek episodes. But her mind is sort of racing around the cosmos, and she's seeing all these climbs and personages and things like that. And you go like, okay, so maybe she's got some way into this, and maybe the way out is like, yeah, she takes control of that power for herself. But they don't even really pull the trigger on that. The only thing I can see that this is like really about using these fairy tale trappings. They're not really using like the theme of Beauty and the Beast. Like this guy isn't misunderstood or anything.
He's
like that.
not worth
he's
loving.
just a jerk. Is that like it's kind of like I guess he's gaslighting her, like with telepathy. Like it's about like a man trying to use his position to sort of control a woman and like being real nice and I'll make you pizza and all this stuff. And he's just not hearing no, like she's a woman standing up to somebody like that. I can't, other than that, I just don't know what this is really about.
I think it's like, it kind of makes me think of Skin of Evil a little bit, where it's because it's sort of about like we leave behind our undesirables on this planet, you know, but like instead, like I feel like the Skin of Evil is like representative of something where it's like this guy was just born a telepath, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the point, is like, maybe I don't know, maybe they shouldn't have left him on the planet. Maybe it's about him in a weird way, you know, like his alienation or something. I don't know. I guess
this had happened before, you know, apparently once in a blue moon, somebody on their planet is born with telepathy and they don't like that. And so they, you know, make the guy go live somewhere else. But he really is like a victim in that scenario. Like Armis. Yeah. People shit on Skin of Evil. And I just really like that idea. I don't know why people hate that episode so much, except, you know, they would kill Tasha Yar. But like, I like the idea of a guy who didn't ask to be made of all the bad things from this race of godlike aliens, but also he's really steering into it. You know, he has let his rage and his isolation and his loneliness like make him a monster, to the point where Picard's like, look, I help everybody, but like, fuck you. Like we're leaving and you're going to stay here. This guy doesn't even make that. He's like a D grade Armis. Like you don't even know how to feel about him. Like you just, dude, she said no. I'm sorry that you're lonely. We'll leave you with some DVDs or something.
Yeah, right. Like they don't give you anything to like hang your hat on with him, you know, to be like, oh, he's an all right guy. You know, that might have actually, I mean, that would have made him maybe more like pitiable, you know.
Yeah, and it's too bad because, like, you know, the Beast from Beauty and the Beast is an interesting character. You know, Bluebeard is kind of just a pitch, but there are places that you can go with a Bluebeard. Like, those are interesting characters, and this guy's just like, eat the pizza. I know you like pizza. I can read your mind. Maybe
if this guy was steaming all the time, like the Beast was, because that's the thing about the Beast is he's like walking around all lecherous and just like smoking, and you just think like his whole existence is just like, it seems so awful, you know. Whereas this guy, it's like, that sucks. That does suck, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, and we're told at the beginning of the crawl of La Belle et la Bête is that like the hands of a human beast will smoke when he slays a victim, and so when he runs off and then comes back and he's covered in blood and he's smoking, it's like, did you kill somebody, or like did you kill like a deer or like a person? Like, you know, what is it that you're struggling with? Who are you? And then also, why does your magic smoke? Are your magic powers tied to like evilness? Is this something that we should be meddling with here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So I don't know, you get the sense of like he's just like driven by his beastly instincts to hunt or whatever, you know, and he hates every moment of it. Every waking moment is pain, you know, whereas like this guy, it would be the opposite with this guy, where it's like, well, like maybe like his power, he's not really like, I don't know, maybe if there was like a thing where it's like he can't help but like hear other people's thoughts or something, you know, if he was like suffering in some way, you'd like feel bad for him. But instead it's like, like they took care of their problem, but in a really terrible way. But they're not there, they're not here, you know. It's kind of like the Armis thing, where it's like, we don't, in that it works that you don't really see who left him behind, you know, because it's kind of fantastical, you know. It's some greater beings, whereas this is just like, there should have been a part of the episode where they go like talk to his people and be like, well, you guys kind of suck or something.
Yeah, or like this, you know, if you want to layer in like Xindi resentment or backstory, like the Xindi caused this somehow, or they're connected to it somehow. You know, there's no good reason for it to not be, I think, connected to what they're what the main plot of the season is. I think the real missing link might lie in his Bluebeard moment when she learns that there are, 4 other graves out there of people that he has done this to. I don't know if they're, young Japanese women, but like, and so we don't know, like, were their lives happy? Did they die young because he drove them crazy? Like, did they willingly decide to do this? Like, the stories are there. Now, this is clearly like a budget-saving episode, or at least they had to save budget because they had all those cool, like, CGI things with the sphere. But, like, if you hired some other actresses, and when she sleeps, she can, like, access his memories of these other people, and she's meeting other characters and getting depth about the bad things that he's done, or maybe the depth of his pain and loneliness that makes Hoshi go, I'm a nice person. Somebody's got to take care of this guy. There's none of that. He's just a weird, creepy guy. Of course we want her to get away, and there's no conflict at all. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great point. If like we saw that, maybe not the suffering from his abilities, but like that he actually like loved and cared for other people, because we don't get the sense that like she ever felt good being there, So when you see the other graves, you just think like, okay, he probably did this to a bunch of other people, and that's even worse,
And and was it victimizing? Like, was he, hurting these people? Or they slip a kind of vampire thing in there too, where it's like, oh, I've been alive for all these years, and everybody I know will get old and die, and I'm still here, and.
But he didn't even have. That's the thing, is there was a vampire thing, but the Beast had Dracula vibes in a good way. But this guy, he didn't. He was just uncomfortable to be around. Especially at the very end when he's like, "Oh, maybe you'll come back." Like, yeah, okay, man.
Yeah, all right, okay. I gave you a fake phone number, so good luck with that. What would have really helped this was a bunch of hands holding candelabras, I think, in the palace.
Oh, yeah.
Doing something with his castle, making it, just giving it some aspect. Where you're like,
well, he does give her pizza.
Yes. And I thought I saw a hamburger there too. So, although she's from Hawaii, so she probably likes pineapple on her pizza. So we didn't want to get into that.
It was all like, pizza, hamburger, like, and a hot dog or something too. It was like,
all your favorite foods,
all your earth foods.
Let's talk about the technology of fairy tales. There is technology in fairy tales. I think a glove that you put on that lets you teleport is just as good as the Star Trek transporter. And
it's even better.
As we see, it's even better. It just as long as you clear out the smoke, open the window. But as we see in the episode, these magic items, their technology, are just as often a complication as it is a boon to them. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies. We add what we get to the non-Trek media, and we subtract it from the Trek episode, and we see how each is different. We call this our technological exchange. And the list that we work from of technologies goes like this. We've got phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drives, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. And if I roll on my arcane artifact of number selecting, I get a number 3, which is tricorders. If tricorders existed in the world of La Belle et la Bête, how would it be different?
Well, maybe they could, scan the Beast first of all and be like, what's going on with this guy? Yeah. Just like, is he, get his readings. They'd be like, oh, he has the same DNA as Avanon or whatever.
Oh, okay.
They cut to the chase.
Yeah. They just read the end of the movie. I think that this is I think the dice always brings us where we need to go, because tricorders is, not only the handheld technology of tricorders, but it's also the idea of knowledge in Star Trek, right? It's being able to scan things. It's being able to understand what it is that you're seeing, which is why it's so tough to do fantasy in Star Trek, because if you see a ghosts are scary because they represent something we don't understand. But when you go, it's an energy being from the planet Arcus 2 or something like that, not scary anymore. So you can't do a horror fantasy. And so, like, in this world, like, they would have tricorders, but would tricorders lay open all the mysteries of the beast and his castle to them? What if you you couldn't get a reading on him, or like what if the reading told you something that you couldn't understand?
You scan the candles and you're like, that's a dude.
Yeah, there's a guy behind the wall. he's wearing a glove. Yeah,
we know how. Yeah, we figure out all the tricks.
The poor guy who was part of the mantelpiece or whatever. Like, did they let him take a big puff of a pipe, and then the PA runs off and okay, action, and he just blows the smoke out of his nose?
That might actually be fun if you like that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, just breathe it right into me.
That's different meaning to like smoking in movies.
Yeah. So they would. So first of all, I think right away you've got a problem because you would know exactly what happened to the father's ships, right?
Oh, yeah.
If they were lost, you'd be, oh, there it is. It's 300 fathoms, on the bottom of the ocean. So you're bankrupt. No waiting for your ship to come in.
They could, if there was any mystery to it, they could be like, oh, there was foul play or something,
Pirates. Now there's pirates involved in our story here.
I wonder how. Well, first of all, his castle would have scanning technology, so it probably already does because he could just tell that the dad was there picking flowers or whatever, plucking roses.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess I wonder, would he also have to hide his castle from censors?
Yeah. So he's obscured his castle. So the father is lost in the storm with his horse, and he's using his tricorder. But he's like, oh, I see this area that I can't scan. Maybe I should check that out.
He comes up to a force field or something. Yeah.
Often in fairy tales, there's something that the hero has been given that gets them through whatever's going on. In the case of Theseus and the labyrinth, he's given the string by Ariadne, so he can find his way through the labyrinth and find his way back out. And so maybe for Belle, the tricorder, which she invented, of course, because she's really into science. The tricorder becomes the solution to all the riddles of the beast's a palace. She can keep tabs on him.
It's like the mirror, pretty much.
Yeah, right. She's kind of got something like that, doesn't she? Yeah, she just has that instead of the mirror. I forgot to mention we were talking about the movie. I love the scene where she first comes in and she's walking down the hall, but she's not. She's sort of gliding.
Yes. Oh my God.
Where she's just sort of not even, her legs aren't even moving, and she's sort of looking around as she slides through this hallway. It's really great.
It's supernatural. It's not just fantastical, but it's kind of scary. That's the whole thing I keep mentioning is I was kind of freaked out the whole time. It's not oh wow, she's being whisked. It's so beautiful. It's yikes.
Do we want this? Yeah, tractor beam. Yeah, so maybe she just she isn't scared by anything. Everything that she runs into,
it's
she's
just like you said with Star Trek.
Just a beast, man.
Everything she's like, that don't impress me much, basically. So you got a magic mirror.
What do you think, you're Brad Pitt or something, beast?
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess you just can't do supernatural horror in Star Trek, it seems, because
it's tough.
Because you can do you're trapped on you're alien. You're in an alien situation.
Yeah,
that's scary. That's easy, Or there's some Cardassians who are gonna kill you.
Yeah,
that's scary. But you can't do. There's a ghost.
We get a storyline like this a couple times, I think, in Star Trek. There's always the idea of a character being pulled into a world and someone is manipulating that world. Usually for emotional satisfaction. There's the episode of TNG where Riker is, he thinks that he's woken up in the future, and he's the captain of the Enterprise now, but it's just this kid who's trying to make this world that he likes. There's an episode of Voyager where that's very much like Exile, actually, where this lonely alien is a telepath and she's contacting Tuvok through the holodeck, and she's wants him to be her mate or just be her friend because she doesn't have anybody else.
Do you think they could do why can't they just do an episode where there's a ghost and they don't figure out what it is?
Well, they've got that episode of TNG where the nacelle is haunted because somebody commits suicide there.
And that's where they're like doing the investigation and like okay, yeah.
And I don't actually remember the
I feel
resolution
like
of
they
that.
explained
but they equate like ghosts with like residual
okay.
psionic energy. You know, that's like where Troy's abilities come in.
I was thinking like it would be cool to do an episode where it's like
space ghosts.
Yeah, they're space ghosts, and then like, and it's like maybe they can even like detect them, you know. So they're like, we know there's something, but we don't know what. And then at the end, they're like, well, what was it? And we're like, we don't know. It was just paranormal activity, you know.
Yeah,
they do a paranormal activity episode where it's just like Riker's quarters, and then it's like the night vision footage, you know, and you just see like the blanket move off of his bed or whatever.
We busted them, and it made us feel good.
Yeah. Who are you gonna call?
I'm surprised that Star Trek hasn't actually really tried to do Ghostbusters, and I'm not kind of surprised. They'll get to it on Discovery.
They're afraid of ghosts. That's what it is.
Yeah. Do it, cowards. Be scared of ghosts.
Yeah, I think we live in a world now with Star Trek where they should do it, because we're going new places with Star Trek. Let's have ghosts.
That's what I say. What about Enterprise? If we remove not only tricorders, which I think the tricorders have appeared in the series at this point, but they never are very heavy on tricorders in Enterprise. But we're removing scanning, removing the ability to scan things, to know more about them.
The orbs.
That would really complicate that. But the thing about the spheres is that like they're impenetrable mostly to their sensors, and they only really learn about one by actually going inside of it in a later episode. So that's already kind of they can't detect. I don't know if they would even be able to have the kind of like charts that T'Pol is working on to sort of like know where the spheres are and detect the anomalies. Going through the Delphic Expanse, like part of the problem is that you don't know when you're going to run into an anomaly and then be thrown forward into the future and have a Vulcan haircut and T'Pol telling you that the Earth got blown up.
So I mean, they're just kind of like already flying without, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like the entirety of their time in the Expanse would just be, let's just go this way, I guess. Maybe we need to get something. Oh boy, I managed to do it.
Okay, great.
I managed to fit Stalker into one of these. So there's a book called Roadside Picnic that was made into a movie by Tarkovsky called Stalker. It was also made into a series of video games, and in that, like, there's a zone where mysterious things happen. And if you walk through the zone, you might be fine, or you might walk into an invisible anomaly that like tears your body apart, or shoots you into the air or does something like that. And so the stalkers, the guys who are guides in this area, they throw like bolts. You tie like a handkerchief to a bolt and you throw it. And if it lands and it's fine, that there's no mine there. It's like Minesweeper.
Oh.
And if something happens to it, you go, oh, we can't go there. So maybe the Enterprise would have to like shoot out probes, not to detect something, but to literally like watch and see if this probe is, absorbed or explodes or is shot in another direction. It's a sort of like an analog way of traveling through space.
Is this like this has got to be the inspiration for Death Stranding with the BTs? You get the little invisible
Death Stranding is very stalkery. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And if you wanted to articulate your Hulk hand so that they threw the thing out, I suppose you could do that.
Yeah,
too.
sure, yeah.
We're just show by show, we're finding out that like Star Trek ships need hands on them. They're not articulate enough.
That's true. And like, you also you don't see them going outside the ship very much, and I feel like they'd probably do that all the time. You
get that a lot in Enterprise.
Yeah. So maybe,
but I think it's
because then they get the robots by.
Oh my god, the robots is so.
It is, but it sort of explains.
Get the robots.
It explains why they never go out onto the ship.
I guess it does, and so they were just always there, like in TNG and stuff, and we just never saw them. But like
stupid.
I know. There's an episode, or excuse me, there's a scene in the most recent episode of Discovery that most of the world hasn't seen, where we see, I think probably for the first time, one of our characters use a worker bee, which is something that has always been in the lore of Star Trek and maybe in the background of films. But, it's a smaller craft that's got Waldos or, something that it can grip, and you do work with it. And it's like a neat scene, and it's kind of tense because, our hero's out there, there's asteroids coming through, and she's trying to fix this thing before disaster happens. And like, in their own world, you've already established that there are little Wally robots that could do that for you. So like, why are you out there? Get the robots out of Star Trek. No offense, Data.
Yeah, no, we want human robots, no
androids
little
only.
Guys. Yeah.
Yeah, no Wallies. Yeah. Fuck Wally. That's what I'm saying.
So yeah, like there's a lot of things that they should be doing. Ships should have hands, obviously. Maybe teeth, too.
Okay, well, what have I signed on for?
Never know when you need
Our
to take
ship needs a mouth.
You gotta take a bite out of crime or whatever. Space crime.
That's probably what McGruff had in mind. Should we tell people what's coming up on the next episode of Backtracking?
Yeah, we're going down another psychological hole here. We're going to be talking about the TNG episode, The Mind's Eye, and how it relates to the classic The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah. Not necessarily a holiday situation.
That's
but
true. That's true.
Classic film, and we are going to talk about the classic film, not the Denzel Washington remake, but the Frank Sinatra one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and the kind of thing that I think I've heard a lot of people complain that Star Trek doesn't do enough. I'm not sure it's Star Trek's chief remit, but like, espionage, psychological thriller, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect fitting. I mean, it's probably intentional. We'll see.
Spies and assassinations and skullduggery, cloak and dagger, the kind of thing that we, if we ever get this Section 31 show, maybe we'll get.
I love that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I think that could be really cool. So looking forward to that,
Yeah.
and that is it for this week's Backtracking. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, tell a friend. And you can follow us at Backtracking on Twitter, and tell us, too, what you think that we should look at in future episodes. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
you can find me on Twitter. I'm at GooeyFame.
And I'm at KA1IBAN on Twitter. You can find all the shows on the Just Enough Trope network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And also, sometimes we mention this, and we're going to do it right now. If you are thinking about giving us a review, we wish that you would do that. If you would go to Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen to our show, give us a rating and a review. It really does help us out. I was looking the other day and thinking, we got a lot of episodes, pretty solid show, I think. We have followers on Twitter, but we don't have those reviews. And I wish that it didn't work that way, but that's the economy, man. Oh, look, you want money, but you want to get rid of capitalism? Yeah, well, I mean, that's the environment we live in. I don't want the votes, but I need the upvotes.
We live in a world of reviews.
Yes, a world of the attention economy and hopefully positive attention. So
not even money we're asking for.
Yeah, we're not even asking for that. So if you enjoy the show at all, slip onto your listening platform of choice and give us a nice word. We'd appreciate it. And that is it for us. We will see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.